Hey, what's up, guys? Sam here, and I'm going to be covering a session today on the HiLo Pro. So I'm excited to show you guys this. A lot of you have seen this surely on my charts, whether you are in the options room or whether you catch the free Friday video on YouTube. But I don't think we've ever actually fully explained what it is, how it works, and we've definitely never done a Q&A on it. So as we go along, if you have any questions, feel free to throw them in the chat, and I'll be happy to help out with it. So let's start with maybe a little bit of an overview here. So for most markets, you will need 2 momentum indicators. Why? Because markets are either trending or range bound up. So the trending indicators will work in trending markets. The range bound indicators will work in choppy markets. The easiest way to think about it is just think about the difference between a screwdriver and a hammer, right? It depends on which one you want to use. There's no right answer necessarily. It depends on the problem that you're faced with. So if you're faced with a nail, you want a hammer. If you're faced with a screw, you want a screwdriver. If you have a screw, the hammer doesn't do you a whole lot of good. If you have a nail, the screwdriver doesn't do you a whole lot of good. So I'm a big believer that you need at least 2 indicators for markets. So today we're going to be covering my range bound indicator, HiLo Pro. Now, before we get started, some similar indicators that will give you similar information are the ready, aim, fire, which is a premium indicator, or the slow stochastic, which is a free indicator. Make sure you slow it down. Okay. So regardless of what flavor you like, even if you want to use something completely free, the slow stochastic makes a very decent free alternative to this. So when do we use it? When do we use it? When do we use it? Well, let me show you what it looks like. So the cool thing about the HiLo Pro is even though it is designed for range up and down markets, you'll see that it exhibits very interesting behavior in trending markets. So for example, you see how when you start getting buy signals, it stays at the top, right? That's a very strong market. What would make it even stronger is when you get these secondary pulses to the upside, right? When you get buy signals at the top, those are really, really powerful signals, right? So hopefully it is really, really straightforward what we're doing here, right? I don't think that this needs a whole kind of breakdown because hopefully I've made it very simple. There's 2 labels that work with this. It's either going to have thrust, which indicates the last signal. So in this case, it has upwards thrust as indicated by the green arrow. And then something that you can't see that's working behind the scenes is a secondary line that kind of looks like this. And if the green line is above that invisible line, then it gives you what I call trend, right? So you end up with double green. And those are the absolute best scenarios, right? When you have double green and double green, those are the best scenarios. So aside from that, it's actually pretty straightforward, right? Let me show you another kind of idealized example here that we looked at in the gold room. And it's going to be Adobe. So very clean stuff here. Basically gives you a buy signal right around there. Your first sell signal happens here. You get another buy signal here. And now actually, very important for today, you're getting another buy signal today that looks a lot like this one back here. See how they have the squeeze, the trend, and you have the arrows? Squeeze, trend, and arrows. So that's pretty much it. I use it for confirmation. I use it for reversals. It's become really one of my better go-to signals for almost anything that I do. And just to prove that it works to the downside and not just to the upside, here's NVIDIA. And you can see that NVIDIA gave you a sell signal right there, gave you more sell signals here. And it wasn't until here that it started giving you actual buy signals. And look at that. So if there's any stocks you want to take a look at, I'm happy to do so. If you have any questions, throw them in the chat. But that's really basically it. It's intended to be an incredibly simple yet robust system that indicates where the pressure is. Keep in mind that even when you have trending stocks that look like this, you're going to have pressure down and then you're going to have pressure up. And the indicator is designed to tell you when the pressure is up or when the pressure is down. Can it be used standalone or to use it in conjunction with a trend oscillator? It's best to use it in conjunction with the trending indicator, right? And that would be the case for no matter what you use. Like I'll give you a free example. Let's say you use MACD as your trending indicator, which is a free indicator. And then let's say you use slow stochastic as the pairing for that. It's always going to be best to use them both in conjunction. Just because you're going to get much more robust information. You can use it standalone, and if you wanted to use the HiLo Pro with a different type of trending indicator that's not the trend oscillator, let's say you wanted to use HiLo Pro and a MACD, that would work. Let's say you wanted to use HiLo Pro and pretty much any other momentum indicator you can think of, that would work. But I always would recommend, regardless of what you use, even if you use completely free tools, pair them together. Pair together your range momentum indicator and your trend indicator for the most robust point of view. Are these HiLo charts that have sent us new ones, or they would send out? No, the HiLo Pro isn't being updated anymore. So we've drastically changed the code. It's still the same essence as what you guys have from the class. And you have the last update that will come out for the HiLo Pro. It does not include the labels because the old HiLo doesn't have the capacity to do that. And also the arrow system has been dramatically updated. So for example, on the last publicly available version of HiLo that you have, you're going to have these buy signals here, which would have got you in somewhere in here. And you would have absolutely no sell signals and no buy signals, right? You can pull it up on your end. So you're not going to have this sell signal, but you're not going to have that buy signal. You're not going to have this buy signal either, and you're not going to have this sell signal and the buy signal. So from your perspective, it would have gone into a buy here, and you would still be in a buy. You would have absolutely no arrows up here. And essentially, it's capturing the spirit of what it should be, right? Because NVIDIA technically hasn't given you any major sell signals. So I made the new version here that you're seeing is faster, but it's a little bit noisier, right? So it does require kind of a refresher on how everything works. The version that you have is going to be slower, but it's also not going to have almost any noise associated with it. Have your indicators not been able to update the first version as a stand-up? Have your indicator? Yeah, SP on that one, contact our support team on that. Which high-low indicator in TOS is the newest? It won't be natively in TOS. It is a paid indicator. So you have to, if you have it, then the last version I believe came out in July. Which time frame does it work best? It works on any time frame. So if you want to take a look at, we can kind of have a little quick session here in terms of like what's stock and what time frame, and I'll show you how it looks. It's probably the easiest way to do it. It works on every time frame. The longer the time frame, the more, this is true for any indicator, the longer the time frame you use it on, the more powerful it is. So if you're using any indicator, not just mine, if you use any indicator and you're using it on a daily, if you get a daily signal, it's significantly more strong than an hourly signal. An hourly signal is stronger than a 15-minute, a 15-minute stronger than a 5. So usually the longer the time frame, the stronger the setup. Somebody wanted to take a look at Meta. And what's cool about Meta here is you can see that it would have kept you basically safe the entire down move lower, right? Notice how it doesn't care about these moves here, right? It's not trying to catch every little twitch, right? If anything, all it does is wait and tell you that's the bounce you want to short, right? You see all of this sell signals down here. And then once it flips, you see how it flips to the other side. Buy, buy, buy. So, and then of course on the weekly time frame, it's just extremely clean because it's the long-term time frame. So it would have got you in right around 150, 140. I mean, it would still technically have you into the trade. So if you guys want to take a look at that, just let me know a time frame and a stock. Can we check out FXI and KWeb on a monthly? Sure. Thank you for the time frame. It's certainly helpful. So at least for now, I still have nothing but sell signals on China. This is FXI monthly. You went into a sell cycle here. So it would have got you out somewhere around 47 to 45. This signal has been canceled out, so that would have been a scratch trade. And the last signal that is active is still a sell signal. If you look at KWeb, probably the same thing. Yeah, basically the same thing. This one didn't give you any twitches whatsoever. So this isn't something that I'd be playing around with too much. I think there's significantly better opportunities out there. This gave you a first sell signal here. And you see how it gave you a sell signal and it's given you no buy signals whatsoever. That's the whole point of this particular indicator, right? It's not meant to be twitchy. It's not meant to say up, down, take a lot of action. The signals, when they print, they should be of the good variety, right? They should last. And in this case, this one's actually somewhat ideal. It gets you out right there, and it would have kept you out this whole time, and still, basically, you'd still be waiting on this. So that would tell me to not trade that for a while. Even if it works like little twitches here and there, you typically want to put yourself in better positions. I'll give you an example. So let me see if I can think of one. So like the QQQ here, nice little buy signal in March, pretty much the low of the market. See the difference there between what we were just looking at? The yellow and the white arrows often turn out to be noise, especially on a 5 and a 15 minute. It depends on how choppy the day is. If you have an issue with that, make sure that you have the update for it. Number one, just make sure that you have the most up-to-date version of this, which you can grab from your indicator page. But then two, what I like to do is use one larger time frame, right? So if you're using it a 5 and a 15, try maybe incorporating the hourly as a basis, right? So then you'd follow the hourly. That's your main signal. If it has a down signal, you would look for down moves, and then you can adjust that on a 15 and a 5. Anytime that you feel like, and this applies to any indicator, anytime that you feel that you have noise on that indicator, and every indicator will have noise, right? Like if I were to put this on a 100 tick chart, it's going to be extremely noisy and difficult to. Basically, the smaller the time frame, the more noise you're going to have. If you find yourself having noise with any indicator, then just raise your time frame or anchor to a larger time frame and then trade the smaller ones. Look at what on Summerwood on SPX, what time frame? Tesla weekly. No, Tesla weekly is kind of a mess. It's saying you have a little bit of down pressure here. I wouldn't view this as a short though, right? Like there's much better shorts out there. This is just, keep in mind, any indicator is just one piece of the puzzle. Like the fact that this has a down arrow makes it less optimal than something like Google, right? Like if we look at Google, Google won't have these issues, right? You see that little buy signal there? So you got a little bit of a sell, you immediately cancel it out. You had nothing but buy signals down here. So with Tesla, if I pull it up, it's just a mess. Right now it's saying it has a little bit of a down pressure to the downside. This isn't a setup that I would short because the structure doesn't work with this. So this is just one little piece of the puzzle. I typically won't, I don't like to short things that have white arrows with positive trend. See it? See the green label? So if I was looking to short this, I would look for red label, red label. When you have green label, red label, I just don't even do anything with it, usually. SPX weekly. I thought you'd never ask. So an SPX weekly is pretty clean. Gave you buy signals the end of March. Takes you into there. You do have a little bit of down pressure here, but again, we just talked about this. Is this something that I would look at as a major short signal? No. Why? Trend is green, thrust is red. Red and green cancel out. I don't view that as a short. Let me see if I can think of a short. Let's try Nike. See, so Nike here would be a short. Why? Because you have red label, right? So you can immediately see why we want to use our indicators in conjunction with each other, because one strengthens the other. So in this case, when you get this sell signal here, it becomes a much more powerful signal than when you're trying to push lower from a positive trend. Any significance to the 20, 50, and 80 level? It's just the extremes. The 50 level is just the center point of the range. If you're above 80, it's the upper extreme. 20 is the lower extreme. That's basically it. On Tesla Weekly, why did I care about the high-low arrow? Because I have to. I have to factor that in. It's not, but the whole point behind the Tesla conversation is that this isn't a clean chart on a weekly time frame, right? We just kind of covered that. So if we look at this, do you have stacked moving averages? Yeah, kind of, but not really. I mean, the 50 is flat, the 200 is flat. So structure is bullish, but not overwhelmingly, right? So I'd basically give this like a neutral bull structure here, right? Now, this is still saying it's in trend, but this is giving me thrust lower at the moment. So why do I care? Because I have to care. It's one piece of the puzzle, right? But notice we're doing this holistically. One thing that I don't want you to do is say arrow equals me short. Arrowed up means me buy, right? That's too simple. That's way too simple. And that's why you want to use all this stuff holistically. So I'll give you an example. So let's look at maybe the QQQ. Look at the NDX, the big boy. So with the NDX, if I remember correctly, you had really clean signals here. So check this out. You see all of these buy signals? Kind of hard to miss them, right? There's a lot of them. Buy anywhere in there, please. Right? But you see how when it crosses at that point in time, right about here, you see how the arrows and the trend oscillator work together? Right? Ignore the labels because the labels are this moment in time right now. But you see how this moment in time right here, this indicator crossed positively, and you had a multitude of sell signals or buy signals. Those are the signals you want to follow, right? You want to follow signals that hit together. If they have conflict like Tesla, I just typically just avoid it. What is a free trend oscillator that I would suggest? Maybe try a MACD. MACD, use try 215555 for your settings, exponential. So MACD, completely free indicator. Try it, slow it down. You can use it out of the box. It's going to be noisy. It'll especially break down when you have no trend. Um, but yeah, that's what I would use, or at least test is a MACD on a 21.55.55. Am I bullish on the market given the move today? No, it doesn't change anything. If you watch my Friday video, we're just in a big 200-point trading box. So I'm not bearish or bullish. I think that's the best way to be, because if you look at the overall market, you're still within a box. So if we go back here, it's trying to break out, and it certainly would skew more bullish because you see how your sell signal has been canceled out and you're in trend. So it's definitely skews more bullish, but I still view this as just one big box between those magenta lines. So I try to stay neutral in that box as much as possible. If you force me, yeah, it would skew bullish for sure, but I don't put too much emphasis on one day, especially not when you're in a range, because tomorrow it could all be gone, and then what am I going to flip bearish then? So instead of being a win vein, and being a win vein if you're a day trader is fine, but I think maybe a more appropriate way to look at it is just to say, hey, we're in a wide trading range. STX on daily shows a red arrow, but trend is bullish. Would you avoid this? Anytime there's conflict, I would typically avoid it. That's going to be the answer. So on mine, it actually is aligned. It's not the best setup that I see, but you can see here just in the labels that as I pull this up, I can't tell you that this is bearish by any stretch. Right? You have your double greens across all time frames. You have green across the top, and you have a fresh buy signal as of today with a squeeze. Is this where I think is the easiest and best opportunity? No. The reason being, you're below weekly 200. So this is a relatively, although this setup is good, I do have to acknowledge it. This setup is good, but let me show you Adobe. So if this setup is good, then Adobe kind of wipes the floor with it, because Adobe has all of the same things that we just looked at, but look how clean it is. And it has your squeeze. So STX does look good, admittedly so, but it's a matter of, does it look better than anything else out there that is similar? And Adobe, Google, and NVIDIA would all be, in my opinion, much better, stronger choices than Seagate. MSGT? You didn't give me a time frame. Surely you meant Microsoft. MSFT, right? I'm gonna assume you meant Microsoft. Well, you didn't give me a time frame, so I'm just going to show you all of them, and you can decide what you want to decide. Some of the strongest signals, for those of you that have the indicator, you should know this, are exactly this right here. When you get a sell signal and immediately cancels out with a buy signal, think of it like judo, right? It's trying to do this, and then it does that. It's like a slingshot. So that's actually a really powerful signal. It may not come across that way, but it is a powerful signal. This doesn't have your buy signal quite just yet on the daily. And you actually still have thrust lower on the weekly for a couple of weeks now. In the past, you mentioned you only want to trade a certain list of stocks. Can you share that watch list? It's not really a watch list, Bob. It's just it's every stock you would know. So I think at my best, I trade like at most 10 things, right? It's going to be all of the indexes, the SPY, the SPX, the QQQ. I don't even really like to trade the IWM or the DIA, so I don't count those. Apple, Microsoft, Google, NVIDIA, Tesla, and then the biggest company of whatever sector is outside of technology. So if I'm looking to trade industrials, I'll only trade Caterpillar. If I'm looking to trade financials, I'll only trade JPM, maybe some Berkshire. If I'm looking to trade energy, I usually just will do the XOP or the XLE, right? So I don't really have a watch list necessarily. It's just the biggest stock in that sector, alongside with the major tech stocks that drive everything. And the reason is pretty simple, right? Everybody's looking at these stocks. Everybody has to trade these stocks. And so you end up getting better signals from those big stocks. When you have a stock that's illiquid or like a $5 stock or whatever, at any point, something weird can happen, right? Because there's not a lot of eyes on it. It's a very low cost stock, whatever. And it makes it less optimal. Can you show the Tesla chart again? Our latest high low is showing a green arrow on weekly. Sure. But also keep in mind, you're not using the same thing I am anymore. Like you're using a variation of it. So that's what mine looks like at the moment. It's kind of sloppy, right? You'll know when it's not sloppy. It looks clean. Like, you know, I could just pull up something like the QQQ and you'll see it. See how rhythmic that is? It's very flowy. Gives very nice, easy signals. This is what it should look like, right? If we look at, you know, pretty much anything, Meta, you can see what it should look like. Apple, see how flowy that is? That's what it should look like. If you look at Tesla, it's having a good day, don't get me wrong. But overall, this is kind of choppy. Thoughts on DNA? Give me more specific. Give me a time frame that you're looking at. That's a stock I don't really trade. All right, so we'll do a couple more questions here. The ingredients for the indicators, what would signal change of trend and thrust? Are they volume-based, momentum-based? They're momentum-based. So they're completely based on, I like to make it abstract and just make it in terms of pressure. So for example, you know, I always use the same example. Maybe you've heard it 100 times. Think of a plane, right? You have a plane that's sitting on the ground. That's your plane. You're trying to get the plane into the air, right? The plane on the ground would be like a market that looks like this, right? It's not going anywhere. It's just sitting there waiting to take off, right? Now, once the plane is in the air, this transitions to this, right? So this is the two phases that you're in, right? You're either the plane is on the ground or the plane is in the air. When the plane is in the air, it travels very easily. It doesn't require a lot of energy, right? It's kind of like just floating through the sky. It still requires some energy, but not as much as getting off the ground. The arrow system indicates thrust, meaning that you're getting that lift, right? That lift up off the ground. And then once you have thrust, then you just look for continued thrust and no changes in the signal. So for example, here's a live example on the 15-minute Q, on the ES 15-minute. Gave you a buy signal right there. What signal do I have to exit? None, right? I have thrust and I have trend. I have a plane that's in the middle of flight. So in that situation, you want to try to stay in that trade until one of the smaller time frames usually will give you a sell signal. And then at that point you can exit. And so it's all momentum based. You're trying to avoid the weirdness of little illiquid stocks. You'll thank me later if for sure, right? It's a special skill set that I don't wish to have. I don't want to have the skill set of trading small stocks, right? Like TG likes to trade small stocks. I give him a very hard time about that because I think he would be better in bigger stocks just because they're easier. But yeah, just keep in mind, if you're trading a small stock that's illiquid, you have to have a really good reason for trading it, right? Because at any point, if you're trading a small stock that's illiquid, some bozo in the UAE can wake up who's got $10 million and, you know, really mess up your chart. Whereas that same bozo wakes up in the UAE with $10 million and he wants to short NVIDIA. Guess what $10 million will do to NVIDIA? Absolutely nothing. It'll get absorbed in 5 seconds, right? So anytime that you can play with liquidity, you'll always get cleaner signals because you have more market participants. And that probably captures the spirit of it. Like the more market participants you have in a stock, meaning like the big stocks like SPY, QQQ, Nvidia, Apple, Microsoft. The more big players you have, the cleaner the signals will tend to be. DNA January. All right. Well, this isn't something that I ever look at, so we'll take a look at it. But this is, I just went on a soapbox about not trading tiny stocks, and this is up 21%. For what it's worth, you actually you got a buy signal on this yesterday. See the white arrow there? You're getting 2 buy signals on it today. Aside from that, I mean, I'll leave this up to your own interpretation. You do now have, you've canceled out your sell signal. So this could actually become a powerful signal overall because this is the opposite signal. Basically, when you have something like this, an up signal immediately canceled out, you get a big whip. In this instance, you have a down signal canceled up by an up. You could get a big whip that way. But just full disclosure, this isn't something that I would personally trade. All right, last question goes to Jane. Do I do any 0DTE trades? Yeah, I've been doing those a lot more often actually because that's the only advantage I see in this market right now because things are so still kind of up in the air is just trading these small time frames, right? So if you get this kind of signal, keep in mind this has to be positive. You know, that sets up a pretty good day trade usually. You know, if you get this signal there, that sets up a pretty good day trade usually. So I'll do 0DTE, I'll do futures, and I'll do a lot of scalping on like SPY shares. Do I have any suggestions for today? I would typically say wait for the pullback. This isn't. You have to understand it. This type of move here does not get me excited, right? Like even if you're in it, I don't think if you're being professional, you should get excited about this. What should be exciting on a move like this isn't this, right? Because keep in mind, it's like a Tesla rocket, right? You think Elon feels good when the Tesla rocket does that? No. Why? Because the Tesla rocket has to come back down and land. And if it's going to fail, it usually fails when it comes back and lands, right? It doesn't. It rarely will fail on the up move. They've been pushing rockets into space since what, the 60s, the 50s. So they've got this part nailed. Getting the rocket to land back on the platform from where it came, that's the tough part. That's the exciting part. So it's the same thing with price action, right? This is the rocket shooting off into space, but you have not seen a pullback to the landing area to see how it handles it. So usually on days like today, though, they keep on being strong because you're not really even getting any pullback. But the real tell, which I can, give you today, and it'll be appropriate no matter what, is the answer to today comes on the pullback. If you hold the 5-minute 21 on the first test, which it hasn't tested all day, then you could set up a short-term buy. Really, where most people will be better off is the 15-minute 21, wherever that happens to be. If it holds the 15-minute 21, you have a very strong market. All right, guys, that is my time. We went the full 30 there. So thanks for the questions. Always appreciate it. Hopefully this was helpful to you, even just from a broader perspective, regardless of whether you're using my indicators or somebody else's or completely free ones. Just kind of tying the idea of 2 indicators are necessary, one for trend, one for range, using them holistically, not just saying, oh, I have an arrow, I'm going to do something, right? The arrow is only one piece of the puzzle. And so hopefully you're able to tie that together with your own indicators. All right, guys, appreciate you. See you next time. Cheers.